Okay, we're recording. So I wanted to officially welcome everybody. My name is Andrew Hickman. I'm Regional Administrator of Educational Technology in Capital Region ESD. That's in Tumwater, Washington, and my region goes from there to the coast and then also a little bit south, connected with 112 eventually, and then up to Puget Sound and then all over. So representing the AESD with professional learning around learning management systems. With me, I have a great team that's also willing to support you in any of your work. A few of them were able to join live today with us. And so we're going to go through the team of colleagues willing to support you in every region. And I'll let them introduce themselves, but we'll go down the list. So first off, from ESD 101, we have Jeff Crawford and Steve. And Steve is with us. So Steve, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I work at ESD 101 in Spokane and focus on technology, so I'm happy to support whatever you need.
Thank you, Steve. From ESD 105, we have Larry Davison and Darcy Jameson, and I believe Larry is with us. So Larry, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, this is Larry Davison, ESD 105. Thanks. Happy to
Thanks,
be here.
Larry. And then from ESD 112, we have Catherine and Christina, and I believe Christina is with us, and she's also our chat monitor today. So Christina.
Good afternoon. Glad to help you wherever I can.
Well, we all help each other, so that's the best part. So I'm Andrew Hickman from Capital Region ESD. I already said who I am. So moving on to ESD 114, we have Susan Lathrop. ESD 121, Puget Sound ESD, we have Amber McCullough. ESD 123, we have Mike Esping. North Central ESD 171, we have Pete Phillips. I don't know if Pete was able to join us again, but if he's here, feel free to unmute. And then from ESD 189, we have Amy Colburn. So looking at this screen, we do have everybody across the state represented, where we are able to support any district, and we're all here for you. And I do know that Christina is sharing this slide deck. And the reason for sharing a participant slide deck is the links are live. So if you want to click on links and email us directly, that's how you can get a hold of us. So very simply, we're here. Our job is to support you. So let us know how we can help, or if you have any additional questions, and we will be there. Okay. So that's the brief intro. Let's talk about the purpose of this session. The purpose of this session is really to start familiarizing ourselves with Seesaw. Seesaw is one of the top 5 learning management systems used in the state of Washington based on a survey result that we received from 117 school districts. So that was why it was put in this learning series, where Seesaw is one that we will help feature and support any way we can. The next thing is we want to understand specific user interfaces. So what does it look like for the teacher? What does it look like for a student? And what does it look like for the parent? Now, I have you for about an hour, little less. Our goal within the hour is to show as much as possible, which is one of the purposes of having this video recorded. Because if it's recorded, we can host it. If there's something that you missed, or maybe I went too fast, which, hey, I can do, then you can go back and rewatch. So this provides an opportunity for you to familiarize yourself with some of the learning management systems, the top 5 in the state, and know who can then support you further. Okay, so that's really our purpose. The first thing we want to do, a number of people took the Reimagine WA work, which really talked about having a core 4. So the 4 basic things that you need in any distance and remote learning situation are a home base, which is the area that students go and they receive all their assignments, communication, etc. So it's your hub, it's your main area. You need an ability for synchronous video, so video to do things live like this, which we really recommend using for creating a culture, building relationships, supporting each other, taking questions, office hours, things like that. Asynchronous video, recording videos to then have students watch later for learning purposes, really supports the new learning idea. So if you're going to teach a new concept, record it so they can watch it, rewatch it, have as many times as they'd like. And then finally, a storage system. So a place that houses all of these resources and files. So looking at this for Seesaw, one of our colleagues, Catherine, made this image to really support the idea for Seesaw. These are just samples. These are not even recommended. It's just an idea. So if Seesaw was your home base, The other products here, so Zoom for synchronous, Screencastify for asynchronous, and either a Google Drive or Office 365, depending on what your district uses, could be a sample of what your Core 4 looks like. So the products and tools that work together. Seesaw does have some of these resources built in as well. So we'll get to that when we get there. So with that, before we begin, is there any questions or anything we're seeing in the chat, Christina, that I need to address before we start looking at Seesaw?
At the moment, there's nothing in the chat, but I'm giving it about 30 seconds.
Okay.
I see Seesaw is K2 recommended, correct?
So when Seesaw was developed, it was developed as K2. That being said, we do have districts across Washington State that have developed and used it for K8. We also have a couple districts that have used it K12. So yes, it was developed for K2, but when we get into it, you'll really see how they've expanded it, and it does work with K8. For example, they have lessons available that are already developed for 8th grade, and we'll show those. So yes, developed for K2 initially, but has expanded.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if it is recommended for special education preschool area?
I don't know a recommendation. Can I see it being used for special ed in preschool? Yes, I can see it being used, and we'll look at that. But a specific recommendation, I don't recommend. I demo. Overview. The features would work, however. Okay, so let's start looking at Seesaw. And the way we developed all of the learning management system overviews, the 101, the lower level overview, this high-end thing, is we looked at every learning management system and said, what do we really need to dive into in an hour? What do we need to show and display? So we're going to go through that. The first one is, how do you create a course? Well, with Seesaw, it's actually pretty simple. It's developed in 3 different areas. It really is organized around who you are. When you're logging in, who are you? So when you go to Seesaw, when you push login at the corner, it gives you 3 options. Number 1, you can log in as the teacher. So if you're the teacher, you're going to have certain features. You click that, then you get to create a new class, and then you pick your grade level. So let's look at this right here for grade level. It says pre-K, and it goes up to 12th grade. It also has an other. So when I create a new class, it lets me pull all the way forward. Another feature in Seesaw, it lets me import a class. So your students can be imported into Seesaw from Google Classroom. So those are my options when I create a course. The other logins, which we'll talk about eventually, is when you get to the login, and this is for students as well, they would click I am a student. And then you'll also notice the I am a family login. So we have 3 different login buttons. For us right now, when you're creating a course, we would click the I am a teacher and create a course. Okay. And then you just name it and pick your class level. It's that simple. The next one is, how do you join a course? Well, students can join a course by 2 different ways. Number 1, you can give them an access code. And we're going to display that in a minute. So I'll show exactly how that works. Number 2, teachers can directly add them through email. Now, this means if they have access to school email, which yes, schools can turn off email, they would need to access by access code. If emails are open, they would just click a link and it would get them in. You'll notice parents and others can be added through a parent or family account. Yes, it actually has a specific parent or family account. Okay, and we'll talk about that. Now, what does this look like? Well, this is how it looks, and I will zoom in because I know my screen is small. Okay, so when you're looking at this, when you go into class settings and you want to add students, it lets me have 2 different options. And this is at the bottom of the screen, which I'll demo in a second when we get into Seesaw. You're either going to push add students or add families. When you add students, you have two choices. Number one, if they are a Google account, you would click yes, and it makes it register by a Google account. If it is not by a Google email address, then you'll click no, and they have to log in with any email address. So it allows for that login with outside emails as well. But most of you will most likely pick with Google account, is my assumption. The next thing it does is it gives you steps to add them by a code. The first one, what we just said, click I am a student, and then they copy this code. They type in this code. Now, this is the crazy part, which I appreciate. For security purposes, there will be a new code every 7 days. So every time you try to add a student, the code refreshes every 7 days, no matter what.
But students aren't pulled out of the class when that refreshes, correct?
No, this is just when you're first adding them. So every 7 days, the code will change. So let's say you email this. So if you want to email these instructions to students, there's an actual email button. You can email them directly and they can follow the steps that way, or just click a link. Pretty simple. Okay. So I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions before we move on.
Do you know if there is a parent limit? How many family additions can be added for a student?
I actually do not know that answer, but we will demo what it looks like when we add a parent.
Okay.
But we can always look it up. Okay, so I'm actually going to go into Seesaw now so we can show how to add students and then show how to add parents, because Christina and I have already set this up a little bit. So when I go into Seesaw, this is the main website. Yes, there is an app. The app looks different. The app takes you right to the login. But on the website, I would click login. Since I've logged in once, it saved me. It remembers I'm the teacher. So it logged me in. This is our LMS overview. There are demos on every page when you're starting something. So since I have not added any resources, there's a demo video of what to add. Over here, it shows me that I have students. So I've added Christina, which she logged in with her email address. I did that by pushing plus students at the bottom. There's the code. There's where I can email, and I can even edit students. I could remove if I would like. Not going to. But then down below, there's also this plus families. So when I push plus family, it says that I can invite the family by mobile number or email and see if they've been added. So let's just test this.
Looks like we're getting quite a few there. So
There is a max, 10.
10.
We got our answer.
I think that should be enough for families.
I'm thinking, okay? So the other thing that's interesting about adding families is there's this print or share invite link. So if you don't want to invite them specifically by you typing in their information, you can always share an invite link. If they get this code, it will do this, and then they can pick which of their students it's associated with.
I'd like to chime in with one to be aware of issue with that one, which is that if a special ed teacher uses that system, it would show the list of all of the special ed students in their course. So a parent for one of those kids would see all of the other names of their special ed kids' classmates. So I would avoid that route if you're dealing with a special ed population.
Perfect. And that makes sense. So then for that, we would manually invite. Okay. So that's how you get students in. Now we get to talk about the features once they're in. So once they're in the classroom. So the first one, since we're going to follow our demo, is how is this class organized? Well, the classes are organized with student work journals. So they call them journals. So in journals, folders can be added for additional organization, and teachers can also post student work and assign activities. So within Seesaw, if we were to look at this, You notice I'm in the journal. There's different journals for the students. They each have their own. So right now I'm in the class journal. You can see over here, there's my folder. If I was to push add, I can post work, I can assign activities, or I can send a communication announcement. So I'm going to post work for Christina, and this is the post student work that I can add. Now, what's interesting about this is think about the phrase post student work. This is for me to share resources, information, and things like that with them. Students also have the options to post their work, because think about a journal. We're putting information into a journal. That's the organization. So if I was to do a photo, which it will take access to my camera, there we go. I could take a photo and I can post it in the work, which allows them to then draw, they can type, they can do audio recordings, etc. within this photo. Not the best photo, so I'm pushing delete. I can also add drawings and then posting in students' work. Okay. There we go. I can do audio, I can add images, I can add backgrounds, I can add links. So think about a journal page. This is what I'm thinking. This is like a journal page. Videos, notes, or upload some files and resources. Notice it does let me select from my Google Drive. Okay, so if I sign in with my Google Drive account, I can add resources directly into here and post to the student work. Now this is the overall class student work. So I'm posting this resource and it gets put into the class journal. Now, there we go. This is what I want to post. Where is it going? I'm posting it to the overall class. And it will also get shared with Christina, which she will now have access to this overview within her journal. Okay, which allows her to comment, like, add to, etc. Okay, let's pause there. Once again, in add, all I've done is post student work. Any questions or any additions? Steve, do you have anything to add with that as well? Any questions, Christina?
So I'm seeing a question from Kelly. It says, so is this kind of the Google Classroom equivalent of being able to post to certain students only for differentiation purposes?
Yes, that is one way to use it.
Can students see other students' journals?
Not from my understanding, but they can see the
I believe there is
overall
a
class.
setting that you can allow it if
Yes.
you want it to. Steve, can you add more to that?
No, all I can think of that ties into what Rebecca is asking is if a teacher were to post an item that a student had created as being visible to other kids, that would do it. But I don't believe that another student could ever see a different student's entire journal.
So, but there is the feature in class settings. So I went to the corner, I clicked the gear. You can turn that on and off if you want them to be able to see other students' work and comments, etc.
And then there was another question about, can you post an interactive Google slide? Will the links be active in here? So can you post something in Google that you want your kids to access?
So, Christina, would you mind sharing screen? Because I shared this Microsoft Teams overview, which has live links.
Mhm.
Would you mind sharing screen? Let's just try it. Let's see what
Yeah.
happens.
So I'm going to go ahead and grab my screen there. And so as you can see here, I can see the original, or I can view this in Google Docs. It looks like I can also view it right inside of here. I'm looking for a, oh, I know there's going to be a link page right here. I'm going to click on Andrew, see if I can send him an email. And when I click on Andrew again, it looks like I have to go into Google Docs to be able to access that link.
So go ahead and try that for me.
Let's do that. So then when I get in there, looks like it's very slick. It doesn't feel like that was too many steps. And so then it opened up my email.
Thank you.
Looks like I can also get a QR code, which I know our elementary teachers just love QR codes when a student can just come up and scan it and be right there. So that's nice.
Me too.
It looks like Kelly did mention that there is an ability for students to see other journals depending on the setup of the course. So you may want to spend a little bit more time understanding the features and the setup.
Perfect.
I'm going to stop sharing and give it back to you, Andrew.
I was already stealing it. So we'll segue into the settings in a little bit. Let's go to a couple of the other features first. The settings is very important. It is the gear, the little wrench in the corner. But let's talk about an activity. Now, this we could spend a lot of time on. So activities are things that you can assign to students for them to participate and do within Seesaw. So I've done a test activity. I've looked at activities, but one of the features that I always like to highlight when I'm talking about Seesaw is this link here, which says community. When I click the community activity library, which I know a lot of people appreciate, there are activities already set up by other teachers across the world that you can organize by different grade bands. So notice it's pre-K through 12th, and there's some others. So if I was to go to a first grade activity, and then I was searching, so let's think about this. So in mathematics, let's do addition. So let's do a first grade addition activity. There's all of these matches already created for me, which have different sheets, etc., to do in first grade. And I'm still scrolling. If you notice, I'm still going down. The thing I really appreciate that this is a community. And so there are some things that have a ton of hearts, which means that people have used them and approved them. So you can filter and you can pick which ones you really like. So this one has 15,000 activities, which is an addition sort. So if I really wanted this, it tells me directions, tap assign, tap T, and tap. So this shows me exactly how to get it to my student, which is Christina. So I'm going to assign. I want it to go into this class. You'll notice there's multiple classes to choose from. I can assign them to all of my classes at once. I can also schedule. I push assign.
And I have it.
And then now she has it right now. So I can also then view the activity. Here it is. They can click on it and do it. Here's the activity here, which is a sort, and we can move forward. Okay.
It's like having Pinterest built into Seesaw for me.
There you go. That's
I love it.
I've never used that analogy before. I'm going to now steal that. Okay. So those are how you can add activities. You can also create your own. So if I get into my library, I can create an activity. You give a title, you type instructions, you add voice instructions, and if you have any multimedia. If you have a certain way you want students to respond, you can even add a template of how they should respond.
Oh, the voice directions are awesome for our pre-readers and for our students for differentiation purposes, like that SPED preschool class we were talking about.
Yep. And students, when they're doing their work, etc. So Catherine's not with us right now, but she was letting us know that one of her students, her personal children, use Seesaw in their classroom, and it allows students to basically take a picture of their work, upload it, and that's how they post. They can do video responses, they can do voice responses, or they can work directly in the activities as well. So different ways for students to respond directly within Seesaw.
So there is a question in the chat that says, if I wanted to assign something to a student in my class, what is the difference between a journal assignment and an activity? So
activities are specifically that you want all students to do, that they could reply direct response. I think of journals as an area to capture thinking, resources, etc. So think about like a science notebook almost, versus an activity as a specific thing assigned that they must do. I don't know if I can explain that any better. Steve, do you have anything to add? I could see the use of it as both ways, to be very honest. So the third one under add is an announcement. This sends an announcement to students in your class. It's a form of communication, which they can reply and you'll get replies back in your inbox. So you'll notice here within all of this, there's journal, which is our main area, specific activities, so specific things that are assigned, inbox, and then lastly is skills. Now, yes, go ahead.
There was a question. Can we do a sample activity so we can see how it works? So I just completed the sample activity that you sent me. Do you want to show them what you see on your side?
Yeah, so a couple things. So when I went to journal, it says I have one unapproved post. So I'm going to just look at that quickly. So here is Christina's activity that she did. There's the sample. Notice did the card sort. So pulled the cards up. And I can either approve or send it back. Now, if I assign this to you, Christina, would you mind sharing and showing us how you replied? If I reassign it?
Okay, so you want me to, I'm waiting for the teacher's approval is what I'm waiting for.
Oh, I can't send it back because I don't have the free one. I do not have the paid one, just so you know. So I'm sending back. So I sent it back for you to do it again.
Okay, so now I'm going to add more things to it. It looks like.
So I'm stopping sharing. Would you mind sharing and showing what you did?
Okay, so let me pull that up really quickly. So here is my work that I sent originally. And then I have this edit button in the top because it's a draft viewable to my teacher. So now I can come in here and do more things before I hit submit. And it's uploading. And you should have it. And it looks like somebody's asking that when you send it back to me, can you add comments or can the student add comments? Andrew, you're muted.
So yes, I can send comments. I can also add voice comments. I can like it, etc. Okay? I can also choose to delete it. And then the other thing that was our next step is talking about kind of grading. The way grading works within Seesaw is it's about skills. So you add different skills they are going to use. And you can add skills here that you must type in. So you need to type in the skills. So the skill that we worked on was addition sort. I can give it a quick code if I would like to. So I'm giving it a skill. The skill has been added, and then you can actually tag skills to certain activities. So if you pass this activity, then you've been given the skill. So this one, I could say, was given a skill. There's the skill that was approved. So it's now been associated to a skill. I can approve it, and that's how the grading would work. So I'm going to jump back in and talk about settings. Now, these are highly important because they are editable, and I have the free account version. So there are additional settings with the paid account. So please be aware that this is demoing the free overview. So if I look at class settings, first off, this is my name, grade level, and now managing teachers. You can add co-teachers to the class, which we've said multiple times today. Having co-teachers is always valuable because you can share lessons, share ideas, share reviews, share everything. So having a co-teacher can be supportive. Okay, you can change the theme, you can change the icon, but let's look at the students. How would you like to monitor and add the students? Well, they can sign in with their email. You can add or delete them. Is there home learning? Do students have a common? Can they see each other's work? I'm going to turn that off. Okay. You must approve an item. So you'll notice when Christina sent the assignment in, I had to review it. If I turn that off, it just gets posted to the overall class journal. Do you want them to be able to edit them afterwards? And do you want the sample student there? So right now in my class, I have a sample student. I'm turning off the sample student. The sample student is important because as a teacher, you can see what it looks like from the student view. Seeing something from a student view is valuable. So good practice. And then there's the family settings. So like we said, we can add family accounts that are associated directly with the students. These are ways to invite them. You can also remove them. You may delete family members. And if there are pendings, this tells me what the families can do. So do you want the families to be able to like? Do you want them to be able to comment? And do you want those comments to be approved on their students' journals? Let me refresh. It is for their students because we're directly associating with their student journals. Okay, do you want a classroom blog? And then there's this folders idea. Do you want to add folders? Okay. Those are the settings. So let's talk about if there's any additional questions at this point before I go back into the slide deck. Any questions?
So in the chat, I'm seeing some questions around how does a teacher access that sample student view? So if you could turn that back on.
Yep. So
They
let's
want to know
turn
how
it
that
on.
works.
So sample student view is here. It just pulls up. So I have control over the entire class journal. So everything, which you can see open over here. If I click sample student, it shows it from the student view. This is what the student will see.
And they wouldn't have any activities because you didn't assign any activities to that sample student.
Correct. But you'll notice there is a folder under the class journal. There's also folders, another level of organization. There's a private folder for teachers. You can add additional folders for work, etc. So you can add folders under your journal for math. You can add folders for science. You can add folders for, which is an organization structure.
Looks like there's a lot of questions about parent communication. Will they get a weekly, daily? How does that work?
So let me scroll down to that. Okay, so parent communications, I have not seen a weekly report. However, if they're added into this, then they can view the entire course for their specific students, be able to interact with them, as well as support them online. I have not personally seen if there's a report. However, there is the skills grading option, which the grading looks like this, which I know they can access.
I'll chime in here. My perspective is that the current communication is actually the best in Seesaw out of any of the LMSs that we're discussing, in that it's push notifications when things are happening in class. So it's not just like a daily or weekly email, it's in the moment. So if a teacher posts an assignment, a parent could potentially know about that, or if a kid turns something in, the parent could potentially know about it. So I feel like it keeps parents in the loop the most of any of these products.
And just like the others, it is both a mobile and desktop option. So there's different access points as well.
Looks like there was a question about what about whole class communication from the teacher?
So that would be the, when I push add and you can send an announcement out. You can send it to all students or specific students or just family members. So it has the internal notification that sends the announcement out. You could also do a journal post. So if I wanted to, let's say, post a video, okay, I could even post a video that would get sent out to everybody internally within Seesaw.
And then I assume parents can modify those notifications, because if I'm working as a teacher in my own classroom and I'm getting an email every time my daughter or son's teacher is posting something, that might be distracting. So I'd want to change those settings for myself.
Correct. And they'll have the little wrench in the corner as well.
A question about video in Seesaw. Can you make the video directly in Seesaw?
Yes.
Do you know if parents can reply to announcements in Seesaw?
I believe they can. Especially if it's directly sent to a parent. So if I said send announcement, and if I send to family members, even though I don't have one, they can reply in here.
Perfect. And I love the term family members to be inclusive, because it's not just parents that are going to be part of this.
And being able to add up to 10 is pretty impressive.
It is. You know if you can archive your courses?
Yes, you can. So if I went to the settings, it was actually at the very bottom. So I scroll all the way down. There's an archive class. Look at this, reset class QR code and family invite codes.
Can a district pull this data, or is this by individual teacher?
I believe with the paid version, districts control.
But if you're using the free version, it's individual teachers that would be responsible for providing that in a record request scenario.
Correct. And I have the free version. I don't have the district one. So I believe when you purchase the bigger features, it has additional features that would be supportive.
Another question about a lot of recommendations, and as our role here, we're not really recommending one or another. We would like you to do the comparison between Google Classroom and Seesaw for your own district in your own situation.
With the district team, including administrators, district superintendents, as well as IT. And
IT is a must.
Yes. So we are not recommending one over another. We are showing features.
So, do you know if when you archive a class, if the items can be downloaded from the archive?
Let us find out. So it says archiving class, remove it from your list. You can restore the archive class later from the gear menu. So I'm archiving. So my class is actually officially gone out of my menu. Okay. Let me see if I can get it. It does not look like I have access. Let's see if I can get the activity. The activity I assigned is still in my activity library. So, and even though it was an archive class, that activity that I assigned is there.
And can that be downloaded?
The activity list? I don't
think so. And the activity list would be kind of hard to download anyways, because it's a drag and drop situation that couldn't easily be done as an offline worksheet.
Well, I believe, however, oh, let's go back. I could print what you had and save and share. So what you had done, your response, I was able to
print and download.
I could share, download. Yep.
Now, while a lot of interest seems to be around the pre-delivered activities and resources within here, I just want to give a word of caution that they need to be vetted. Yep. And you need to make sure that they meet the criteria of your own curriculum and your standards within Washington State, because this isn't just a Washington State platform.
I second that.
This is a national platform. For some of these activities may not align with your standards or your goals.
With the number of them on here, and if you vet them and you use professional judgment, I think you'll be able to find some if you would like.
Absolutely. There is a question about the length of videos for Seesaw. Also, the question came in is, can we reuse classes or repost assignments?
I believe you can because it's just in your, so they all get put into your activity library because it creates a library of activities that you've done. You can view all. So even if this grows bigger and bigger and bigger, it's still saving them in your library, and then you can reuse them, even if the class was archived. I don't know the length of the video, but we do not recommend going above 5 minutes.
No.
So I know it at least goes to 5 minutes.
And although the classes can be reused, I would caution you to reuse the activities, not delete the kids out of a class and reuse it, because it is like, it has a timestamp and it's going to have previous information. It's really simple to add a new class and reuse those activities versus cleaning out students.
I agree. One thing that you will notice that I forgot to mention down below, if we're talking about activities, you can also create collections. So this is a library bank of activities that you can do. So if you were to create a collection around a certain set of standards and activities that you do, so if I can create a selection, let's just do 1OA, so operations and algebraic thinking, first grade. If I create a collection, I can put certain activities in this collection that match. And that way I kind of have a subfolder of activities I can pull of that match my standards.
There is some discussion in the chat about the number of activities that are allowed in the free version versus the paid version. Do we have specific information on that?
I do not.
I want to say it's like 50 or 100. So it's a large number, but it's not necessarily going to cover an entire school year.
And it looks like you cannot edit any of the activities that are within the community library. They are used as is, unless you decide to recreate them yourself. We don't have specific information about pricing. That's going to be a district level decision. It will depend on FTE of students and buildings and a lot of considerations that come at a district level versus something that we can share as a statewide.
Which is part of our other considerations. When you're looking at any of these learning management systems, you always need to be aware of data privacy, pricing, integration with another system, so SIS integration, different onboarding and training for staff, how your IT and administration can support, and other tools it integrates with. Now you'll notice this was able to pull from Google Drive. It was also able to share links, which means yes, you can pull in other activities and resources from other sources. So, but you need to have these considerations when you're looking at any learning management system. Pricing is definitely one of them, which should be a district level decision and who is involved.
Yeah, and I see a lot of sharing of the quotes you've received individually, but that's really going to depend on the size of your district. It's going to depend on, are you collaborating with another district? There's a lot of pieces in there, so be really careful with looking at what somebody else paid for it and assuming that's what your district would have to pay for it as well.
Yeah, always talk with them directly and get quotes for your district specifically.
Kelly, you just posted in the chat, how many activities would you use in a school year? So my read of the state superintendent's newest guidance issued today was that the expectation is that a student has daily activities. So I would expect you to do at least 180 activities over the span of a year.
And I think activities is a broad term because there's different ways to do activities. They don't have to be specifically posted activities because Seesaw calls them activities. It could be also a journal entry. I mean, it's a lot of different ways to process that around what the content actually is. So just be aware.
I also know that Lori Curtis knows what she's doing with this product. So Lori, if you'd like to chime in, that's great. My understanding is that once you reach that 100 activity limit, you could just go back and delete previous activities and then continue from there. You just wouldn't have those records available to you, and you'd have to recreate activities the following school year if you needed to.
Do you know if a teacher can create their own activity not from the community library?
Oh, yes. So right here, there's a button that says create new activity. You can create it from scratch. So what is your activity called? What are your instructions? Do you have multimedia? Do you have a graph, for example, that you wanted to put in? And there's a ton of other options as well to put in. Is there notes? Does it get assigned to a specific skill? So yes, you can create your own activity. You also have the ability, once your activity is created, if you choose to, you can share that activity with the other community as well. So you have that availability also.
And I assume we can also bring in our already purchased curriculum that we have available, and our pacing guides and all of the rest of that can go into Seesaw. So we're not just reliant on what's in the community activities or my own creativity.
Correct. And also with the add button, and if you post the work, which puts it in their journals for them to access, you could do direct links to those materials and curriculums for them. You can put those in.
Do you know if there's a limit on how many classes you can have in the paid version versus the free version?
I do not. I have gone up to 3 myself just to test it. I can keep adding and see what it says, but I have not paid with that level.
Looks like we can make quite a few.
Yep. I'm at 4, 5. I'm already at 7. I mean, I don't know if I need to go much further.
No, I think you're good. Oh, Dusty responded from a Google search. It looks like about 10 courses.
Yeah, and on the paid version, it's 100.
Yeah.
And once you archive a class, that's not considered an active class anymore. So then you should be able to add a new one.
Yep. That's my understanding as well.
Only other questions that seem to be in the chat really are single sign-in, such as Clever or something else. Does that work with just the paid version, or is that something that can work with the free version?
I'm not sure. However, when I just go to Seesaw and click I'm a teacher, it automatically logs me in. So I'm assuming if you just log in once per device, it will keep you logged in. So I have never had to re-enter my information.
Okay. And then there was a question from Leah. I hope this question makes sense. If I have 6 teachers at the K grade, can we share lessons so all 100 students have access to the lessons?
Yes. So when we did this, when I went up here to the gear, it says manage teachers. You can invite teachers to co-teachers. All teachers will have the same permission. You'll be able to approve items for your parents, etc. Now, if you add assignments, then those assignments also get added to your activities folder.
Another question came up is about support for other languages. Is there any translation or language support within Seesaw?
I have not tried any, so I cannot answer that. There might be a search we could do, but I have not tried any.
Somebody has heard that it can translate.
It's very possible.
I'd be questioning translation as your only source for that communication during virtual distance learning. And I would highly recommend including in your ELL support staff within your Seesaw class to help support English language students.
When you do post student work, you're able to post video or audio recordings as well. So there are ways to do that.
It looks like it does have a large support with huge amount of languages. Again, I would question how much support that would be.
Okay, last questions.
John, thank you so much for posting a link to the translation question and answering that for us. Wonderful. We love to learn from all of our people.
Which we will post that in the slide deck.
Yes, we will. I'm copying it right now to the participant slide deck.
Thank you.
Looks like has anybody found a need for dojo or class tag when they're using Seesaw? I think that's a question for all of you. So please answer in the chat if you do have an answer for that. Other than that, I'm not seeing any other questions at this time.
Okay.
Oh, something just popped. Is it possible to have a video chat within Seesaw? So can I put together a small group of students and have a paraeducator run that small group, or myself as a teacher?
There is not, from what we've been able to see, a synchronous video session. It's videos get recorded and then posted. So you'd be able to still use a link for things like Zoom or other to get them, or Meet, to do a synchronous session. But yes, you could put that in. You could put with the time. People could join that way. They could use it as a link hub. But the videos are recorded videos that get posted in the journals.
So they're more like my asynchronized direct instruction when I'm not doing a live session.
Yep. Okay.
I know one of the things that's really important to consider is what are the resources we're going to be sending students out to, and trying to limit those. I know as I spoke with many of my colleagues during the COVID shutdown in March when it was kind of an emergency situation, teachers were linking out to lots of different things, and each of those links required a password or something else. So my recommendation in general is to just consider how many clicks does a student or family need to make before they can submit an assignment. And try to lower that as much as you possibly can, specifically for our youngest students who may be interacting with this for the first time.
Okay. Well, we'd like
Steve
to.
or Lori, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. Well, we'd like to thank you all for joining. I'm going to stop the recording at this point. If there's any last minute